Family of the slain Buyani Primary Principal Lazarus Baloyi still reeling in shock this afternoon. Speaking to Newzroom Afrika, family spokesperson Akani Machimana saying no indication that his life was in danger. Machimana says the family hopes the killers will be brought to justice. Baloyi was shot dead at the school premises in Finetown, south of Joburg, early this morning. The school's now been closed. Police are investigating the incident. Just the most incredible story. Well, let's get more on this. Newzroom Afrika reporter Zikhona Tshona joins us now. She's been there through the day. Zikhona, good afternoon to you. I mean, just the most, it's a ridiculous thing to say, but the most incredible story. Principal, I presume, helping to unlock the school in the morning. Suddenly, shots ring out. The education department, what are they saying?
So, Panyaza Lusufi visited MEC of Education in Gauteng. Panyaza Lusufi visited the school shortly after the incident happened. He says in CCTV footage that was seen by the department as well as the police, it appears that as though this was a hit. What they've described is that the principal came into the school, parked his car. There was a young man, the police officer told us, that followed him and thereafter fired bullets onto the car. We saw about, I think, 8 bullets going into that car, so very devastating scenes. The family was quick to be on the scene as well, but the car still had the blood stains on it at around 11 o'clock this morning. We understand the incident took place at around 8, as well as his lunchbox, his suitcase. He was preparing to go into school. As far as we understand, the school children at the time were still making their way to school and they were turned away. At the time, what people who were inside the school property have told us is that there was only one educator who was close to the scene. So police arrived quite early, and as far as we understand, the investigation is still ongoing. They are using the CCTV footage, but they're saying the CCTV footage doesn't really show much. You can't really tell who the person is, and also given the fact that they had parked the car outside and ran in on foot before firing those bullets. But let's take a listen to the MEC as to what he had to say at the school.
Clearly the principal was followed. After it's just parked, somebody walks in and they executed the task that they've been given by whoever gave them that task, and they just walk out of the school. So that's... But police are better positioned. They will find that. They will. People can hide behind the killer, but we'll unmask them. We have to. We have no choice. We can't allow this culture to be prevalent in our school premises. We can't allow it. We must stop it on its tracks.
There's a corner, again, it's a primary school principal, for goodness sake. You look at the bullet holes in the car there, and it's always bullet holes in a car that we see, and we all have to arrive at our sort of own conclusions, wait for the police to do their work. I can't imagine how the family feel. Friday morning, looking forward to the end of the week. Maybe the principal is, their family member preparing for exams. I can't imagine how they feel.
We also spoke to some of the parents outside the school when we arrived in the morning, also relaying their trauma and saying that their children are equally shaken by what has happened. They've also described the character of the principal, saying that he was a very warm person who always welcomed them in when they came to drop off their kids in the morning. So it's a death that when I left there that I felt that the whole community has been affected by it. But I think what is important that the MEC mentioned today visiting the area is that he says this is one of 3 incidents, or there are 3 other incidents that happened there that involve school principals. So he's seeing that there's a pattern where school principals are being targeted and they don't know the reason behind this. He also mentioned that this particular principal was the chairperson of SATU in his branch, and it often happens that there are fights over positions, but of course those are things that the police investigation will have to uncover. He mentioned a story of a principal who was shot on her way to school on the highway, another on the school grounds. So this is something that is concerning the education department. The MEC also says they want to increase the level of security at schools, but they don't have the financial capacity to do so. And also with regards to having armed guards at school, is that the solution? Because these are minors that we are dealing with here. You don't want to put them in a situation where they are in an area where there are guns. And as far as the family is concerned, When we arrived there, the car had just made its way to the family home. His wife had just returned from the scene. The family spokesperson telling us that he has a 3-month-old baby and an older daughter. So this is a man who leaves behind a wife and 2 other children. It's Father's Day on Sunday, Stephen. So this is a family that has now have to mourn their father, as opposed to celebrating him. But let's take a listen to the family spokesperson in describing his character and saying that he was not just a father to his children, but to many in the family, but also in the community at large.
No, we haven't heard of anything. It was just a normal day where he was just going to school to do what he does. He left on a normal, on a normal mood, like you would go to work. There was no concerns or anything that he's raised previously. He was father of the nation, father to those who knew him. So I am a niece. My aunt is married to him. So, but I mean, to him, to me, he was a father. Always treated me like a child. He has a daughter who is in varsity doing her first year. He also has a 3-month-old baby.
Zikhona, I mean, there is a certain community around primary schools. I mean, before the pandemic, some of the best moments that I felt have actually been watching not just my children, but other people's children in the school production or whatever with other parents, people I don't know but very well, but people just all celebrating our children together. And I talk about this deliberately because of the sense of a community that a primary school can have that maybe a high school doesn't have. To lose a principal like this is just the most awful thing.
And when we were outside the school this morning, that's exactly the sentiment that the parents shared, saying now it means they have to get used to someone else, because this was a man that led them as a community of not just parents, but of that community in particular. Also speaking to neighbors who said he was a community builder and really stood for children going to school. One of the neighbors said whenever he saw a child walking to school or knowing that the child has quite a distance to cover, he'd always try his best to make sure that the child makes it to school on time. So they've described this man who really cared about what he was doing and was really passionate about it. The parents speaking very fondly of a man who would call them to meetings just to update them in as far as not just COVID-19, but the progress of their children. So I think the community is at a loss. The parents were in tears outside the school saying it's going to take them a long time to get used to another principal. So, but also what's important is that the Department of Education has said that it is going to offer counseling to both parents and pupils, as well as teachers who have been affected by what transpired at the school today.
Zikhona Tshona, thanks very much indeed. Newzroom Afrika reporter on really just a very, very disturbing story. All right.